Hey YouTube family, as promised, I told you when I saw episode 2 of the docuseries Depp versus H.U.G.S that I would do another video. And I'm going to. But I'm also going to tell you that I don't think I'm going to do a video after I watch episode 3. The reason being, I was watching Darth's video. And, you know, it got me to thinking, the reason that the Depp vs. H.U.G.S Netflix docuseries is now in the #1 slot is because we're promoting it. Nothing against Netflix, really, but truthfully speaking, the docuseries is crap. It really is. I am watching it. I'm gonna watch episode 3 because I was very curious to see how much of Darth was in there, and he's in there a lot. Like, so much of his footage is used, and but the more I watched of it, this thing it really is put together poorly. You know, and it's funny that Darth actually mentioned how badly put together it is, because it's something that I had written down in my notes here when I was watching it. Was, God, this thing just looks like all they did was take clips of this and this and just put them together, you know, and add some dramatic music, which I could have done without. And I know, girl. I could have put this thing together. And to me, it's like I've been saying, I feel like Netflix just jumped on the bandwagon, you know, using Johnny Depp's pain for monetary gain. I don't know. I mean, after a year and a half, somebody probably could sit down and they probably do this thing together in a few hours' time. You know, because I admit it would take time to clip all that stuff together, but really sucked. It's not like they sat down and did interviews with anybody. That's a documentary. You know, get some facts, get some interviews. I remember reading that the did I write this down in my notes? The producer of this did not want to interview Johnny Depp or Amber Heard for this. No, why? Because, well, you know, that would have just been too much work, I guess. I don't know. So I'm gonna give you my opinion of episode 2, and I'm sure this will just carry on into episode 3 because it's a very simply done docu-series. Alright, so episode 2 says that the Depp versus H.U.G.S trial was the biggest story in the nation, even bigger than the Ukraine war. Think about that. People were watching Depp versus H.U.G.S, even in mainstream media, was being covered more than the Ukraine war. These celebrities' dirty laundry was more interesting than they discussed the YouTubers that were streaming the trial, and they mentioned super chats that fans could send. That when you send a super chat to a YouTube channel, it highlights your name. If you're in one of their live, she's chomping her bone. That's what you hear back there. And it sends money to the YouTuber. And usually the YouTuber will show their name across the screen, you know, and highlight their comment or question. So it's a way for you to get noticed, and B, it gives the YouTuber money. The YouTuber makes money from it. Like I said, I think I said this before, millions were made from YouTubers creating content about this trial. They really set out to show or try to prove that it was social media that won the trial for Johnny. You hear more of the audio, which honestly, about halfway through episode 2, I started getting all those old feelings back again. So it was very triggering. Once again, we had put this thing to bed, was done, and now Netflix just stirring the pot. Because you hear more of the audios, and then what they're showing you are the reactions that the YouTubers were making, the fans were making. They showed you the TikToks that were being made. You did see some of you saw, I think, more photos in the docu-series than what we were allowed to see when we were watching the trial. I don't remember seeing some of those photos. Unless I had to step away from the computer at the time. But there's some photos that I just don't remember seeing. This time around, I concentrated on their faces. Because I'd seen the trial, and my heart just again broke for Johnny, because on Amber's face it totally looked like she was trying to concentrate and keep up with her lies, and Johnny's was one of, I'm just gonna get through this. This is what it is. This happened. Here it is. It was obvious that he was there to clear his name up. So they said this was the first time a courtroom in the United States showed live footage of a victim alleging sexual assault in full version. And then there were others that pointed out how they started pointing out the controversy, like TikTok people and YouTube personalities, how A.H. claimed that she did not have a clear recollection of exactly what happened the night that she was supposedly SA'd. But then she goes into serious detail, quite a lot of detail about this alleged SA. And you all know what event I'm talking about. So some said that they had a hard time trusting them and didn't know who to believe, because they are both, in fact, actors. So they just didn't know what to think. And many also pointed out that A.H.'s attitude just was never one that matched up with a real victim of SA or DV. They mentioned the movie Gone Girl in episode 2. Now, I had never seen the movie Gone Girl back when the trial started, and I had heard somebody mention Gone Girl on TikTok, so I went to watch Gone Girl then. And I remember while I was watching it, I thought, oh my God, that's Amber Heard. Gone Girl, freaky movie. And they showed a lot of edited TikToks, and they mentioned how easy it was to edit the footage from the trial for TikToks. and they were concerned about false information being put out there. But if you watch the actual trial, you wouldn't have had to worry about that. And then there was an interview from Camille that they play. I think when in watching this, I think that many people were actually able to relate to Johnny's difficult childhood. I think that's part of what won the trial, not social media. But as I watched this, all those old feelings that I had when I watched the trial, feelings of remembering my own situations, feelings of, the audacity of Amber Heard calling herself a victim of domestic violence, when she in fact was the narcissist, is a narcissist. All those old feelings of hatred toward AH that honestly, things that were put to bed, moved past, all that stuff because of her scheming and lies, all that stuff started to well back up in me, and I didn't like how I felt. And I started thinking, I'm very unclear as to what Netflix's purpose was for this docuseries. Why they were stirring something up that was only just starting to settle down. What's the purpose, Netflix? Why create this docuseries? A year and a half later, why release this when people were just starting to move on and just starting to even heal, because it was very triggering for a lot of people. And why stir the pot? That's a serious question. What was the purpose of this? They discussed how social media influencers, were making money. Over the course of the trial, millions of dollars were generated by content creators. I mentioned that earlier. They talked about fans getting to Johnny's lawyers. There was this one girl who she went to the courthouse. She went up to a floor she wasn't never supposed to be on to get information to Johnny's lawyers, something that she felt, well, all of us fans actually felt like he needed to know. About the Milani makeup, do you remember that whole thing? How she claimed to use this compact, the whole time she was in a relationship with him, and then the Milani cosmetic company actually made a TikTok of their own showing that during that makeup wasn't even released until 2017. And then they said Milani since had removed the TikTok from their account. So they were like, how were fans even able to approach his attorneys, or to get information to them? So that was brought up into question. They questioned, this is a good one, I would like to know this one actually. They questioned how they picked the jury. I did always wonder that, like, who doesn't know Johnny Depp? Right, and I don't believe the jury was sequestered. Darth said he thought they were sequestered. I don't think they were. If someone else knows for certain, let me look this up right now, and let's just find out right now. Were the jurors in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case sequestered? Let's see. Instead of sequestering the jury in the Depp versus Heard trial, the judge employed the much more common tactic of instructing the jury to avoid discussing the trial, consuming any news reports about the trial, or doing their own research on topics covered in the trial. So they weren't sequestered. So why? That was just the judge's decision, I imagine. It was a 6-week trial, And maybe she just felt like, it was too long for people to be away from their families and whatever. I don't know. I don't know what her reason was for that, but she chose not to sequester them. So every day the jurors were walking through all the people out, all the fans, and they were going home. I believe that these people were warned quite sternly enough every single day. And I think everybody in the courtroom experienced that as well. Every day lectured and told, don't do this, don't do that, or this is your consequence. And I believe the jurors got those speeches too every day, probably multiple times a day. So none of them would want it to get back that they had looked at something, So I think they totally obeyed the rules. But they absolutely were not sequestered. In such a high-profile case, though, I have always kind of found it, why would they not be sequestered? And how do they find jurors for this case? I mean, it would have to be people that just have their heads buried in the sand, are not real up on who Johnny Depp really, like, okay, I've heard of Johnny Depp, but not really a fan, or not really this and that and the other. None of them, I don't think, ever heard of Amber Heard. I didn't know who Amber Heard was before this trial. Nope. But yeah, that's so. So once again, they were just blaming social media. And this is where I'm going to end my review of the docuseries. I'm going to watch episode 3. And I think something happened in episode 3 that made Andy Signor look bad. Don't know what it is yet. I could really care less. I'm with Darth. If he said something, he said something. Also, if you were a YouTuber that Netflix reached out to, and you didn't get your money, you didn't, well, people check your emails more. I'm nobody. No, they didn't reach out to me. They didn't care nothing about what I had to say. But again, I'm happy for Darth, and I'm going to tell Darth, I'm going to tell you to take your own advice. Take the win. Don't be embarrassed or ashamed that it's on Netflix. It's number 1 on Netflix. The big time. So, you got paid. Nothing embarrassing about that at all. You brought us some great coverage. The docuseries sucks, but your coverage was excellent. Better than anyone else's, I have to say. I mean, yeah, definitely. So you deserve all the credit, all this credit and the recognition and the money. So, in your own words, take the win. And congratulations. So that ends my talking about this docuseries. And, there's other stuff to talk about in this world. And in my life, lots of things happening. Make sure you subscribe for more videos. Things are happening in my life. A lot is happening in the very near future. More than I content enough for many, 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 many videos. And nothing I can really talk about right now. But I will. So make sure you subscribe so you can keep up. God bless you guys, and I will talk to you soon.